Today is Tuesday, January 27, 2026. My name is Regina Williams, and I'm with the Western Reserve Historical Society. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's wonderful to know that I'm going to have an opportunity today to get to know a little bit more about girl groups in the 1960s, and especially about the Ronettes. So why don't we get started, please, with me asking you to state your name, first, middle, and last name, if you would, and then your profession.
Okay, first name Nedra Yvonne Ross. I started singing when I was very young because my mother sang, and my grandmother, and so they just sort of pushed us into singing. My grandmother, especially, because she was with my mother. You have a beautiful daughter. Why don't you take her and do something with her?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Ronettes.
You know I've been wanting you my whole life through, and now that you're my God.
That was just what I did. I knew nothing more than that.
And thank you also for bringing your son,
Yep.
Mr. Ryan Christopher Ross.
He's the child that we decided, life was going to come to an end at some point. Better get him to put everything straight.
Okay, thank you. So we're here then at the Hilton Hotel in downtown Cleveland with a professional singer. I'd like to find out a little bit more about your early life and how it is that you found your voice as a singer.
My mom. I owe my mom everything.
Yes,
Susie Talley.
thank you.
See, she liked to sing, wanted to sing, but my grandmother was more out of the religious side of the church, where if you want to sing, okay, but don't get too involved. And so she gave me courage to go out there and stand. And I figured something out recently. Part of the reasons I believe that the Ronettes, we continued and we were successful as we were because we held each other's hand when we would walk out on stage. And we believed that God was watching what we did. And then we had uncles that were guards. They took care of us, and people thought, oh, you must be having so much fun, You meet all these people, you can do this, you can do that. Well, you couldn't. You really couldn't. So they kept us tight, and my mom kept me very tight. And she had a saying, you don't want me to step on your neck, do you? I thought that was funny. No, 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 thank you. So it was like, hear me, listen to me, believe me. I'm older than you. I know what's out there. And she had done just enough of the music to know how things worked. I just followed her.
Yes. And did your mother ever share any stories with you about how she came to love music so much that she wanted you to be that singer?
I don't know if she had a story about me being a singer per se, too much. She just was like, you've got a chance. And if you listen and be obedient, you will succeed. And I did.
So again, you have a loving mother who knows that she has a beautiful daughter and the daughter has a voice, and then you're a singer. But how does the group come together? Was that your mother's idea also?
She was part of that. Oh, the talk over that, who was what. But my mother came from 7 brothers, 7 sisters, so there was tons of them. So there was always a big hubbub over the weekend. What's the name to be, you know, for the group? And the Ronettes was actually for R.E. Ronnie, N.E. Nedra, E.S. Estelle. So that's how we came about, with a lot of prayer to be successful.
In the early years of the group's history, in your family first, right, before you become a girl group. But what's the relationship between Nedra, Ronnie, and Estelle?
Aunt Bibi is my aunt, my mother's sister, so it was always a closeness there.
Okay.
And then the uncles and the cousins, the boys' cousins, were our chaperones. So, you know, you just went, you followed what they said to do.
So as the group comes together, I know I look at the video and everybody was so young. Did all of this happen when the group really started to gel? Was this happening before you leave high school?
Yeah, actually, it was when I was in high school. Then I had my school friends that were going, you're going to go to the Brooklyn Fox Theater and you're going to sing. So they thought that was a big deal. And it was a big deal. But I said, well, this is the beginning of us.
What about remember your high school, or was it your high school music?
Oh, my music teacher thought I was the cat's meow. I was not the cat's meow. But she just, it probably to her default. She didn't, she just said, you can sing, you think music, you feel music, and I want to be a part of it.
Yes, so thank you for mentioning Brooklyn and this theater where you are performing and people recognize early on that this is a big deal and you're about to do something great when you have that opportunity. But thanks also for mentioning the difference that a music teacher can make in the life of a young person, in case they don't have a mother who recognizes that they are gifted musically. Those individuals, I think, are significant too. And thank you for mentioning that teacher's role as part of your oral history today. But again, you've told us about your cousins, Ronnie and Estelle, and how close you all were, not just to each other, as far as holding hands when you walk on stage before you start to sing, but also that there's an extended family group.
We had girl cousins and boy cousins.
And they're all chaperones?
They were chaperones. Craziest thing, how old was I? I was in junior high school. And so, I mean, it was a New York City school, so it's not like it had good parts, it had bad parts. So then there would be the times that they said, oh, we're going to cut all the girls' braids. I had long.
Try to intimidate people.
Yeah, and say, we're going to cut the hair. And I always had long hair, and I cried at school. And I called my cousin Buddy, please come get me. They're going to cut my hair. He said, nobody's going to touch you, Nedra. No one's going to touch you. And no one did. No one did. But I was feisty in my own way.
But you had to be.
Yeah, you had to be.
Yes,
You
New
had to be. If you were a New York City kid, you had to know what you were doing, not let anybody tell you do this or do that. Had one boy, Petey, and he had about 5 brothers, and he was sort of the leader of this little group of people. And he said, my books fell, you did it. I said, your books fell because they just fell. I did not knock over your books. I would have picked them up had I knocked them over, but I didn't knock them over. So I knew at that moment that I had to stand up as a female and say, you cannot tell me that I knocked your books over and you're going to make me pick them up. No. So I fought him for like 10 blocks. I fought him from 140th Street uptown. But so anyway, I just loved what I did. You're not going to intimidate. My mother was so strong. If you have a mother that is strong, she will make you strong with her.
Okay.
I can't speak highly enough over my mother.
Yeah.
I really can't.
Well, may I ask about just, again, we talked about how you found your voice, you know, and that you're out performing and you're never alone because there's a group and there's that greatly extended family. But I'm wondering also, is there a point where you realize as a young woman that I really am an artist? You know, I really am a star. And they know our names. We're the Ronettes. When did that happen?
That happened when I was in about 10th grade. I mean, because they were proud that somebody from GW, our school, was going and doing shows on the weekend. You know, so you couldn't ask for more than that. The boys were still cute, but yeah, I loved what I did.
The song that I think I know the most about is Be My Baby. And so, you know, I'm hooked now on this video that I've seen. I heard you mention earlier that you like to wear your hair long when you were in the girl group. But I look at that video and there's just a lot of hair everywhere. You know, hair on top.
People didn't
hair on the
believe it.
shoulder.
It was my hair. I actually had Tammy Terrell, who sang with Marvin. She said, "That's not your hair." I said, "Why are you saying that to me? This is my hair." So I literally leaned over and I took my hand and ran it through my hair. And I said, "This is mine." And my mother was very much, "It's hers." And I gave it to her. So, you know, we had to fight the side of people not believing who we were, what we did, what nationality we were. Dick Clark, we went to do his show, and he said he's never had to sweat through an interview like he did that one. Because he looked at us and he was like, what language do they speak?
First of all, may I have your first name?
Ronnie.
Ronnie?
Still.
Still?
Medra.
How do you spell that?
NUBA.
Okay. I feel a little, I must frankly admit, I feel a little more comfortable now than I did a moment ago I did an interview show years and years ago where nobody spoke English, and it's extremely difficult sometimes.
He was the beginning. He was a very influential in our career. Clay Cole was another person that was very much in the business. So once you really begin to know the business and know what you shouldn't do in the business, you'll have a story to tell one day.
And Nedra, you've given us a lot of information to work with, but may I just ask for just a little bit more for some of the names you mentioned? Because I'm not sure that the younger students of American music will know some of the other singers. Tammy Terrell.
Tammy, she was very big. She died very young. We were just a part of what was the going thing.
And this is primarily in the 1960s then,
60s.
when you're having these kinds of encounters with
Yeah,
other artists. Now you mentioned a Marvin, but there's more than one Marvin back
Oh,
then.
yes,
Which Marvin is this?
Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. There wasn't none like Marvin Gaye, but I just wanted to hear it from you to make sure. Okay.
She can name drop a lot, and sometimes I will ask her questions like, you know, what about this person, or what did you know this person? You know, just in passing, and she'll, oh yeah, I know that one, or you know, you just
They say you
because of
can't
the-
know that many people.
I know. I say it's almost like Forrest Gump. She has her Forrest Gump moments where she's in, you know, she was in Dallas.
Kennedy was
got
shot. I heard a gunshot in my left ear so loud. And I mean, we had to make a decision. Do we stop touring? It was my husband's birthday. And, oh, he was my boyfriend then. And
So
it felt like the world had come to an end.
Yeah.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
When Kennedy died, I was, I think, 16. I thought this was it for the world.
President Kennedy's assassination, 1963, it's just one of many things, one of many assassinations in the decade of the 60s. So certainly understand why you would ask yourself, you know, should we take this chance? Should we continue to do that? But I wanted to ask about a person who just had the staying power. Dick Clark. You mentioned his name earlier.
Great. He's a great man. He was, honestly, we had a coach to travel in, and he said, well, with a cot there and seats and all that, he said, sit down here. He never came on in any way to young girls, ever. He was just a joy. Actually, he told my husband now, I introduced my husband to Dick. And so he said, oh, I know Nedra. I slept with her 13 nights because we had to sleep in the you know, in the bus.
tour bus.
The tour bus, you know, but he was a jewel. He was a jewel.
Yeah. And he was that Dick Clark of American Bandstand.
That Dick Clark, yeah.
There's probably video on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Oh, there is. There's a video of the Ronettes that was done by a guy that was one of the musicians for us. And so we had people that knew people. He played the band for them, and we went on. That tour was the most exhausting thing in my life. I really honestly said, I will never do this again.
Was it cross country?
Cross country.
On a bus. Yeah.
On a bus with a bunch of rockers.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing the story. I like riding the bus, but thank you for telling us about your experiences going cross country on a bus with other great musicians.
Yeah, right.
But I'd also like to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing your husband's name.
Scott Ross.
Okay, thank you. The boyfriend who became
The
husband.
boyfriend from Scotland that I married. We
But then my dad was in radio, and he worked for
WINS in New York.
yeah, which was
the big
a
radio
AM
station.
which was he was a disc jockey and all that kind of stuff. So he was introduced to the Ronettes when my mom was pretty young.
Who introduced him to the Beatles.
Yeah, but she introduced him to the Beatles, and then, you know, because she toured with the Beatles, you know, and then the Rolling Stones were an opening act for her, but my dad was Scottish, so they kind of hit it off, being that they were, you know,
Yeah.
all that from England and all that. So she helped him get into more knowing the people, and you know, he was always good to her, and then a romance.
Great
started.
husband.
Yeah.
Great husband.
At that point, if I may ask, in the group's history, were people offering you opportunities to travel and perform internationally? Or was it mostly in the United States of
No,
America?
it was, we were going all over, you know, Japan, England. I was dating one of the Stones. So you're only dating because that's who you hang out with. So it wasn't like, you know, how many people understand what it's like to be a singer and people yelling for you? Either you can take it to your head or you can just put it to the side and say, you're a nice person, goodbye, you know. So, yeah. So I introduced him a lot, but he had his own that he was doing. And so anyway,
I just,
my mother didn't want me to marry him.
oh, okay. Now, you just said the Stones, right? And I think I know which group you're referring to. But for the record, again, it's the Rolling Stones, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Beatles. I think in
Yeah.
the same sentence. This is quite a compound sentence there. So can we unpack that
Yeah.
a bit?
We went to England for my 18th birthday, and so they were like, "Oh my gosh, the Beatles are here and they want to have a party with you." I said, "The Beatles? What is a Beatle? What do you mean the Beatles? What an ugly name!" That's all you could come up with, the Beatles. And so they gave us a big party, and that just kept it going there. I could have dated more there. I didn't, because I fell in love with Scott Ross.
Yeah.
He was the love of my life.
Now, I am told that there is a Beatles story that's connected to your first visit, perhaps, performance in Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
The first tour that the Beatles did was in the United States. But I didn't go on that tour. It just said Ronettes, but I wasn't the Ronette. I had to hire a look-alike cousin, to take my place, because Phil was saying either you marry me and you don't go on that tour, and John was saying either you go on that tour and we get together. I mean, so I just chose the one I loved, and I happened to love Phil at the time, so I didn't go on that tour.
I lived at a high-rise on Riverside Drive. And we hear this roar in the building. The Stones are here.
It got quite the uproar where you
It
got
was-
the Rolling Stones
yeah.
come and hang out, and they loved Grandma's food, right?
My mother was a great cook. She owned restaurants and stuff. And Yeah, so I mean, we had that, but my mother just did not want me to marry Scott. Mothers can think they're right at times, and but most of that was because it would have made it an interracial marriage. That didn't scare me. I love who I love. I'll marry who I'm in love with. I never went against my mother for anything except that. And then when she died years later, one of our family friends said, "You know, I think she died just so that she didn't have to see you and Scott work out." But anyway, so
Yeah. Well, can we stay there for just a moment? Because early on in our conversation this afternoon, you mentioned something about what people assume if you have a little color in you. And I wondered with the music, at that point in the 1960s, they're not race records anymore, but people, it seems to me sometimes, historians especially, I do, you try to categorize certain styles and certain sounds just so you think you understand what you're listening to.
right.
So, there's R&B and there's soul, rhythm and blues and soul and gospel. Although you said
Yeah.
you didn't get your start as
Oh, I
singing
understand God.
secular.
We
Yes.
sang Christian songs in our
Yes.
home, but yeah,
But where would you place the music of the Ronettes?
we
As you
we
perform.
were a new sound. We were a new sound, and that was through Phil Spector, the producer we had, did that. Even though I did not believe she should have married Phil, just because of his way and stuff. And I was young, but I think I was smart. I think I was sort of smart because I would look at it and see, even though I was going to marry this guy from Scotland, but Phil was a Jewish guy from New York with a lot of problems. He was small, and so he had little man syndrome, a lot of things like that, And so,
So, again, but your references to your cousin, Ronnie, who became Mrs. Spector. Yes. I noticed that her book is available. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but Be My Baby. Yeah. Beautiful cover image of her as well. But yes, so there are a lot of amazing people who were part of the Ronettes' history. So, I can imagine that the rock and roll experts could teach a whole, probably semester-long course on the Ronettes and the various people that you work with. Yeah. But can we talk about race and ethnicity and culture and how you handled that? Because when I think, as an African American, and this is where I was teaching, now, oh my goodness, for over 30 years, yeah, I kind of see race in everything. Although it doesn't explain everything, but here you are interacting with people of all different races and ethnicities and backgrounds, and yet you find the strength, the courage to love, across the color line, across nationalities and races, and was that hard to do for you and your husband in that era
Not
of civil rights and all
civil
of that?
rights. When we first went to Virginia, we had no idea that black and white didn't marry. So, like, what's going on here,
New York is so diverse.
Yeah.
You'll get
And my husband, being from Scott, he was like, look, this is who I want. I will marry her, and that's it. And they would say, oh, well, what is she? He'd go, what do you mean, what is she? Well, first of all, we know she's a female, you know, but we had no idea what we were walking into. But because we had a big family, so even for doing shows, when we were going to do another show in Wildwood, New Jersey, and they were like, you're really doing good here tonight and the last couple of days. We want you to stay longer as a group. And so my aunt said they're under contract already for shows, so that they're not going to do other shows when they have appointments set up. And so I just sat there going, what are we doing in Jersey? I know no one in New Jersey, and it turned out that, my little aunt, that's 5'2", red hair, had more guts than any man had in the world. And she said, I'm taking the girls to where they belong, and they're not doing a show for you. And you can't come and just say, oh, I'm going to pay you, $1,000 more, so you're going to do it. And she talked down the mafia in Jersey. Well, I had an Uncle Tony. He was Italian, a play uncle who's been very, very nice to my family. And he was there for us. So God watched out for us. He watched out for us. I can't tell you why, except my grandmother was a praying woman. My mother was a praying woman. So I knew enough to know when God steps in, everything else has got to fall to the side. So my mother, she did stop with the interracial thing. I said, Mom, we have nothing but interracial people in our family. What are you talking about? My grandfather is Indian, American Indian, Black. We got Italian. We had it all. And now how are you jumping now where you're saying you can't do this, somebody can't do this because it's not popular. I didn't care. I really didn't care. I loved him with all my heart.
He also has this interest in music, as a DJ. Yeah. Sounds like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, right.
All right. But full-time DJ in New York?
Yeah, WINS.
Okay, wonderful. And so that's, you were very, very busy. I was trying to, again, to understand that relationship and all that you're doing. Your job wasn't easy. Cross country on a bus, and then the
Didn't do it again.
You would?
One time on the bus.
One time.
Just one time.
That's what it was.
That was it.
Once
We did planes and stuff, but one time to cross the road,
We
and
didn't really do too much of.
we didn't work a lot because I wanted to go home. I had one little brother. That's all I had, Craig. And
So they would do the big shows on like Labor Day and the holidays and things like that, and then usually the big cities. So they didn't have to do.
we
too much,
didn't
as they would say,
do.
the Chitlin circuit.
We didn't do it.
Too much. They did the fly, L.A. and Chicago and New York, and then New York could keep you busy enough, right? And Brooklyn and
Yeah,
Uptown and
yeah.
all the different places.
We opened the Peppermint Lounge
Mm-hmm.
when I was 16. Illegal.
Yeah, interesting though, because you look so grown up. I mean, and polished. And it's one video I keep watching, "To Be My Baby," and the choreography was great. Who was doing all of that? I know the voice is yours.
We did it together.
Uh-huh.
People, say, well, who did the clothes? Well, Estelle helped with the clothes. My mother did help with hair. So we had all of these areas where we could put together and really shine.
Mm-hmm.
But because people didn't know what we were, we had a lot of people that were just going, no, they're Chinese. No, they're not. They're this, they're that,
Mm-hmm.
So everybody claimed them.
But we
So it
did
worked
have
for you.
Chinese in the family. Estelle's had Chinese in her side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So we were broad in the people and nationalities.
Mm-hmm. And it appeals to a lot of people.
It does.
Yeah. So I guess you didn't get pigeonholed as much.
No.
You could just perform and let people enjoy the music.
That's true.
Yeah.
They didn't know what we were, who we were, where we were from. We would say it, New York. They say, "You're from New York?" Okay. But then they wanted to know more.
Yeah.
We always looked like they needed to know more. We were very close. Mm-hmm. And we did what we did.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the body of music.
Did my best to make you happy. Is this what I get from loving you, baby? Is this what I get from loving you, baby? There was a night when you held me tight and you said you'd always love me. You said you'd never hurt me.
Do you have a favorite song though?
A favorite song?
Yes.
Of the Ronettes?
Sure.
Be My Baby. That was the biggest selling song for us. Because my husband would say, aren't you tired of hearing Be My Baby? I go, no, if it's making me money, I'm there.
Royalty.
Royalties, I still get royalties from it, So I didn't think that way being young. I didn't think one day, that we would be getting all of this, like the Christmas songs.
See those sleigh bells jingling, ring, tingle, tingling too. Ring, 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 ding, come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you.
Played all the Christmas season that we did in '64. I didn't expect that to be a just memorable song. Yet Billboard has us as the #1 girl group of all time. We went to Germany, and that was memorable. That was because we really, well, I'll say for myself, I never felt more of a pain of being away. I'm a home girl. To be in Germany and these boys be sad, I was like, I'm going to give you a kiss. It's going to be on the cheek, no more. And then you get other people say, oh, they kissed the boys. Yeah, we did. Because they needed somebody to give them some love.
Sounds like you just had an amazing career, traveling here and there with family, with people who love you, meeting new people along the way. But then you come home, and you have somebody to come home to. And then eventually you have Ryan. So at what point do you look at all the bright lights and the beautiful music and say, well, maybe I should settle down? Or have you
No.
settled down yet?
I'm not settled down.
Not yet? Oh, okay.
I love to sing, but I mean, I'm not in it to be a singer and build myself up at all. He was not the first child, but he was everything, you know. And then when he got older, and then I saw that he had giftings of his own that I gave him because I just was like, Ryan, you know, I loved real estate. I loved remodeling and all of that. So when he got bigger, I was like, okay, go ahead, you do it. I won't do it. You'll do it. And that's what it's been, you know.
I do real estate. I also do restaurants. My mom did restaurants, so I also do that as well. But yeah, I was lucky at a young age when she got out of singing and things along those lines, and she kind of helped my father along with his career, which was in Christian radio and things along that line. So when we moved to Virginia, the 700 Club was located out of Virginia. That's why they moved there. So her life kind of became helping my dad and his stuff in ministry and things along those lines. But her real focus was just wanting to be a mother. So that was her.
Always wanted to be a mother.
Always wanted to be a mother and be a very good mother, which she did. And then, you know, helping my father and things along those lines. But they were always able to work together where he could always introduce her as, you know, right, Nedra Talley of the Ronettes, and then she would sing songs, and so therefore it'd be a great part of that. And then he would do ministry and stuff, which she, to this day, feel like the only man that truly spoke to her spiritually in a way where he opened God up, and she knew God.
That's how
But she really.
I really came to the Lord, was through Scott. Because I had a lot of boys think, oh, she's cute, oh, all these things. He came to me talking about the Lord. I said, what is he talking about? Because he was so deep. His father was a minister. So it was who he was. And
As a teenager?
yes, his father died when he was 19. And it was hard for him, but he said, you know, his dad laid there dying, saying, son, he said, he was saying to his dad, Dad, you need to stay here with us. And he said, son, I'm going home. You gotta understand, I'll be in a much better place than I am here. And my husband's the same kind of man where when it's spiritual things, the kids say, nobody can preach like Dad can preach. Because he knew it from his heart.
Was there always that love, you know, throughout your married life for the music of the world and the music of the church? Or did you divide it up that way? Did you just like good
Divide
music?
up. We knew that the music, some of the music that was being played was not, it's not hip anymore. It's not out there. So he had a good ear. We had a record company. And so then we did music our own for our age. Yeah, so.
And so is this sort of the newer sound, the popular music, or is it primarily the sacred music of the church?
It's a lot of it's a newer sound, you know.
Talking about the Full Circle album? Talking about that one?
No, just well, I have one album that's called Full Circle, which is about my life. I've gone full circle around, you know, come back to this point of my life, you know, and it's a favorite for a lot of people. being always thinking of the next step. What is the next step that we have to walk in and not hold on to the old, but get a hold of the new.
Well, you know, when you mention the 700 Club, that's huge, you know, and that you're working as ministers. Both of you are active in ministry then because of your connections to the 700 Club. Does that continue throughout your adult? Do you continue to work with them now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So my dad was with them until the day he died, and then you know, and then the Robertsons, who is Pat, who started, and Dee
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 Dee.
are now passed away. So Gordon and Catherine Robertson are now the new whatever, but they were lucky enough to be role models to Catherine, or mostly to Gordon. Gordon, because my dad worked for Pat, and so he grew up. But it was our family's been lucky enough to have them in our family.
I'm Aunt Nedra,
To Gordon, yep.
Scott's Uncle Scott, you know.
Sure.
So
So yeah.
we kept our connection there with them.
Well, it sounds like you're still pretty busy. So I want to thank you again, because I know you have a party to go to, for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me. But I'm so happy to know that you're getting this honor here in my hometown of Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. So you're already there in the company of Aretha Franklin and Mahalia Jackson and some of the other amazing women who have also been inducted into the Rock Hall.
Ryan would always say to me, Mom, we'll never be as hip as you and Dad.
No matter how hard I try. No matter how hard I try, they'll always be cooler. So it was nice that they could use that, you know, that influence that they had, and to take normal people or people that would be starstruck, but say, hey, I'm just like you. You know, we're the same. And that's I can say lucky about my mom. She's one that she never let stardom go to her head. She would talk to anybody. You know what I mean? She was nice to everybody. There was never a time that she didn't want to get to know people and talk to them, because she never really thought of herself as a star in that sense. I think she was always a mother and a sister and a cousin and a wife and things like that. So, you know, been lucky enough.
I loved being that. I've become this year monarch for our family, of all of the aunts and uncles and all that. I'm like, I'm really old now.
So are you like the matriarch of the whole clan now?
Yeah. She's getting to be the oldest now, and you know, that one where everyone can kind of call on and ask for and things like that. So
And you say, we didn't do that when Mama was alive. What are you doing now?
so she is.
Well, to young people who might be considering a life in music, since you haven't retired from either the ministry or the love of the singing, but a life that is filled with music like yours. Is there any advice that you would offer to them if they're thinking
Put
about
the Lord first. My husband had an ability to preach it in a way to make people go, oh, that's the truth, you know, and do it, you know, go there. So, I don't know, you know, with the loss of my husband this year, it has broken my heart. I wish I could say just talk to you regular and not cry. But I know that God had a plan for my life and my husband's life. And we're here. He's with me. Our son. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for sharing. My goodness, we talked about so many things. I love Cleveland, but you love New York. You know, the Beatles, the Stones, Dick Clark. And so, you know, what a wonderful life. And of course, Mr. Scott Ross. But again, thanks for sharing information about music, the new sound, and your family. Greatly extended family.
Greatly
Very
extended.
diverse family.
We had a lot of family.
Yeah, but and also about being a daughter and a cousin and a wife and a mother.
Chokes me up sometimes, but she's on a rocket ship that will never leave, right? The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Estelle. Thank you, Ronnie. I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening, for being a part of a dream of 3 young girls, 15, 17, 18, 16, those years in New York City, which is a very big city. We were born and raised here.
She'll just keep on going on forever. So it's just great to be a part of it, right? So
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming to Cleveland to party with us.
Yeah, it's not over yet. We're still going.
Yeah.
We got all night.
Off to the house that Rock built. Yeah, a couple days this week
Yeah.
to party.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
I haven't said that.